Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Boruto episode 206 spoilers. Alright guys, if you guys aren't necessarily too familiar with this video format, I go over the chapters that this episode is going to be adapting, and for this specific episode right here, they're going to be adapting chapter 40 and 41. It was a little bit controversial in regards to which chapters they were actually going to be adapting, but from the preview we now got a clear understanding of exactly what chapters they will be adapting. So Kawaki and Boro start off the chapter having a little bit of back-to-back banter. Kawaki asks Boro, "Where is Naruto?" Boro lifts up the tea kettle that Naruto was sealed in and throws it at Team 7. At that particular point, Boro basically tells Team 7 like, hey, only Jin can open that tea kettle. If you break it or try to crack it, he can't necessarily guarantee the safety of the contents that's actually inside of it. Nonetheless, they try to open it as well, but they don't necessarily get too far because they understand that they have a battle to fight. They start to look around for Boro. Turns out that Boro completely disappeared. They're still looking around for Boro, and then Boro makes his first attack. Boro uses a lava style jutsu that comes from underneath the ground, similar to what we did see in the preview. Specifically, it's called lava style planet branding blast. Team 7 jumps up in the air mainly because they called it. Turns out that none of them were actually affected by the lava. Kawaki then starts to remember that Boro did say that he can't necessarily guarantee the safety of the contents that's inside of the actual tea kettle if the tea kettle was damaged, and because of the lava style, it's very possible that the tea kettle itself was actually damaged. Kawaki then quickly activates his karma seal, absorbs all of the lava style. Team 7 is completely stunned mainly because Kawaki is able to absorb the lava style. Kawaki goes to check on the tea kettle. Turns out the tea kettle was actually fine. Boro actually then goes to attack Kawaki and tries to catch Kawaki off guard. Boruto jumps in and then immediately absorbs the lava style that was headed towards Kawaki. Boro actually comes out of the woodworks, basically the first time that we did see him since the first scene, and then he talks about Boruto's karma seal, says that Delta wasn't lying, and actually calls Boruto the vessel of Momoshiki Otsutsuki. Boro then tells Boruto to come at me. Boruto rushes in. Boruto makes a beeline towards Boro using the rasengan. He doesn't necessarily have his karma seal activated at this particular time, but he hits Boro with a point blank rasengan. Boro goes flying back, but it turns out that Boro has regenerative abilities and regenerates instantaneously and completely shrugs it off. Boro is basically saying like, hey, the rasengan packs a punch, but again, he has the regenerative abilities. Everybody in Team 7 was surprised except for Kawaki because he knew all from the get-go that Boro had the regenerative abilities. Kawaki then tells Boruto, let's blast him so badly that he can't regenerate. Kawaki then starts to blitz Boro. He then uses submultiplication, hits Boro, and then picks Boro up and then slams him into the ground. This right here when this anime is going to look absolutely insane, but regardless, Boruto then jumps up, uses his rasengan, but before he actually connects his rasengan to Boro, Kawaki and Boruto faint to the ground. The black mist that we did see in the preview starts to surround Kawaki and Boruto. Kawaki goes to try to absorb the dark mist, but it turns out that he wasn't necessarily able to absorb the dark mist. At this particular time, Boro jumps up and then kicks Kawaki. Kawaki goes flying. Sarada is just looking back, analyzing the situation, understand that Boruto and Kawaki made a very bad decision of actually jumping in. At this particular time, Mitsuki had no choice but to join the fight. Mitsuki tries to use wind style to blow away the mist. Turns out that that right there didn't actually work, so of course Mitsuki resorts to attacking Boro head on. He then uses the lightning style snake lightning jutsu, but Boro blocks it with the water style water wall jutsu, but then Mitsuki counters with shadow striking snakes. Mitsuki actually did say that his lightning style was actually a diversion for this attack right here. Mitsuki restrains Boro. Boro is completely locked up, but it turns out that Boro completely overpowered Mitsuki and then ended up slamming Mitsuki into the ground by his own shadow snakes. But one of Mitsuki's snake actually takes a bite out of Boro and infects him with venom. The venom starts to quickly and visibly spread throughout Boro's arm, but Boro noticed it and used the jutsu to actually counter the venom. Mitsuki at this particular time, he is being affected with the dark mist. Sada comes in, she throws a big boulder at Boro and then grabs Kawaki. She then tells Mitsuki to grab Boro and then they retreat. At this particular time, they're all sitting back trying to analyze exactly what just happened. Kawaki's like, yo, why did you run off? Don't you care about Lord 7? Sada's of course saying that she does, but at this particular time, they were in a very bad situation and justified the reason of why she actually retreated. Then she puts on her headband and then says they have to work as a team now. Now they call it the new Team 7. Again, Konohamaru is taking another L, but regardless, that's the end of chapter 40. We go into chapter 41. At the beginning of the chapter, Team 7 is talking amongst each other, trying to devise a plan and actually analyze exactly what what just happened to them. But before they make the plan, Boruto asks Kawaki about the karma seal and asks why isn't it able to actually absorb the dark mist. Kawaki then goes on an explanation. He used an example with a water style shinobi, and I will explain it in my terms so it isn't necessarily as confusing. If a water style shinobi uses his own chakra to create water, the karma seal is then able to absorb that water. But if a water style shinobi manipulates water that was already there, for example he's in the ocean and he's manipulating that water right there, the karma seal isn't necessarily able to absorb that, and he dubs these attacks as physical ability and says the dark mist is actually a physical ability. Here's where Mitsuki comes in absolutely clutch. Turns out that during the volley between Mitsuki and Boro, Mitsuki actually snags some of that dark mist within one of his snake's mouth, and then actually tells Sarada that he's going to release the dark mist, and he wants her to analyze the dark mist while it floats in the air. So he releases the dark mist. Sarada used her sharingan to actually analyze the dark mist, and it turns out that she deducted that it's actually a virus. So off screen they then devise a plan. Now at this particular moment, after they devised the plan, they wanted to name a leader or the quote-unquote captain of this new Team 7 cell, and of course they named Sarada as being the captain. She was surprised, but of course she absolutely loved it. Boruto tried to object, but Kawaki quickly corrected Boruto like, hey, you're definitely not going to be the captain. And then of course the plan started to commence. Sarada then pulls back up to Boro, essentially as if she was going to 1v1 Boro. Boro then guesses that this right here was the only course of attack because the other three boys were affected with his mist virus. That right there seems like he's playing directly into Team 7's hands. So Sarada then goes to attack Boro. Boro uses his lava style jutsu, planet branding blast. Sarada then counters with a fire style fireball jutsu. After that right there stalemate, Sarada then runs away. She then deducts that even though Boro is strong, Boro is still not that fast. Sarada then uses some fire style fireball jutsus and tries to attack Boro. Boro then counters with water style wall of water, but then out of nowhere, Sarada then realizes that she's actually surrounded with the dark mist of viruses. The only way for Sarada to actually avoid the dark mist is by going up in the air, and then Boro meets her up in the air and then spreads the dark mist even more, and then Sarada gets enveloped by the dark mist. Sarada then falls to the floor. Boro then picks Sarada up by the shirt. It seems like it's all over for Team 7, but out of nowhere, Sarada starts to use some hand signs, and then at point blank range uses the fire style fireball jutsu, and then directly after that she cocks back for an insane chakra punch and then rocks Boro. Then out of nowhere she calls for the boys. Boruto and Kawaki, they jump out of nowhere, activate their karma seal. Boruto uses the rasengan. Kawaki then puts his arm on Boruto's back for a unison rasengan, basically boosting the power of that already powerful rasengan. They hit Boro with it point blank range, and it literally blows Boro's top half of his body off. All he is right now is just a right arm and two legs, almost the same as how Gaara was back when Kawaki completely destroyed him. Now at this particular time, Team 7, they're all happy, they're basically celebrating, but out of nowhere, Boro, still half of his body, hops up on his legs and then starts to regenerate. Everybody in Team 7 is surprised, even Kawaki, even though he knew he had regenerative abilities. Boro hops up, basically shrugs it off, and then starts to analyze the situation. Basically starts to ask, why is everybody not necessarily being affected by his dark mist? But then Mitsuki starts to explain the situation even further. Early in the fight, when Mitsuki's snake went to inject Boro with his venom, the snake actually took some of Boro's blood, and once they found out that the dark mist was actually viruses, they deducted that because Boro is immune to the dark mist, he must have built antibodies corresponding to the dark mist to actually prevent Boro from getting sick with it. And because the antibodies were in Boro's blood, they spread out throughout Team 7, which basically gave them also the antibodies, and because of that, the rest of Team 7 are now immune to the dark mist. So now it's going to be a flat out fight. The new Team 7 surrounds Boro. Boro understands that they're using teamwork. Boro decides to break up their teamwork by making a beeline towards Naruto, and obviously that did break up their teamwork, mainly because Kawaki got completely out of formation, and then the chapter ends like that. This episode right here is going to be absolutely amazing. The new Team 7 again is going to look absolutely amazing. I'm super excited for this episode, and the animation is even better than what I thought it would have been because of the preview. But let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Baara, and we out.
It's a knife.